Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to today's class on working with investors. We are going to review the many different ways that we can find investment properties for our clients. Guys, if you have any questions, always unmute yourselves and ask questions. Also, I want to remind you that I am going to load this video into my YouTube channel, and you can always find me on YouTube right there, Robert Rodriguez. And you'll find the video in here, as you'll see many different videos in here, like MLS training, contracts training, and so much more. So please follow me on YouTube if you have not yet followed me. Subscribe to the channel and stay up to date with all the latest trainings. All right, so today we're going to use a variety of different applications or softwares to find properties for our clients. We're going to use, of course, the MLS, which is CoreLogic Matrix. We're also going to be using IMAP to quickly determine valuations of properties. We're going to use RPR so we can determine the potential return on those investments. And we're also going to log into several websites outside of our MLS here to find auction properties, properties that are for sale via auction. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm going to divide the class into two. First, we're going to show you how to find quick fix and flip properties for those of you that have clients looking to buy a property on the cheap and renovate the property and then sell for a profit. How can we determine the best value for your investor? And then after that, we're going to go ahead and look for some rental income properties, whether that be multifamily properties or larger properties like commercial, apartment buildings. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right into the action. All right, so once you are in the MLS, of course, you have the ability to search for any property listed in the entire MLS. We're gonna begin with a single family home, so we are gonna tap into RE1 and RE2. Now, once upon a time, years ago, there was many different properties that were available for a quick fix and flip, and then that started to diminish as we head into the pandemic. You saw that there was very little properties available. Now, it is increasing again. Like you start to see more and more properties that are for sale, whether it's a foreclosure or a property that's short sale, or maybe even a property that's just for sale that needs some handyman work, right? Some TLC. So in the MLS, the quickest way for us to find a property that's a good uh, fix and flip opportunity is to search for REOs, or these are foreclosed properties, not properties that are in foreclosure, right? Those are pre-foreclosure. We are looking for properties that have already foreclosed. Therefore, the bank already owns the property and you are going to try and buy the property from the bank, right? The buyer is going to try and buy the property from the bank. So, inside of your search in the MLS, you are going to go down here to the additional fields section, and we are going to add an additional field called REO. REO stands for real estate owned. In other words, it is a bank-owned property, and you are going to select yes. So right now, in the entire MLS, there are 792 properties that are bank-owned and are for sale. I do want to let you know there are probably a whole lot more, but they're not for sale yet on the MLS. As you can imagine, there's probably a lot more bank-owned properties that are pretty much sitting in the bank's inventory and they're just not selling it yet. But right now, for sale, REOs are 792. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on single family home. That's going to reduce the amount to 322. And then choose what county you want to go to. You can go to Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach. I'm going to go to Miami-Dade. And currently there are 137 foreclosure opportunities right now in Miami-Dade County. Of course, you guys can put in price range, bedrooms and bathrooms, whatever it is that you desire. You may want to search by zip code or by city, subdivision, by map, however it is that you guys want to search. All right, I'm going to try and stay below, let's say below $750,000. So that's going to cut our results down to 85. All right. Let's go ahead and also make sure that we are only looking at single family homes. Let's click on single. So we're going to reduce the results and get rid of maybe the mobile homes. And there are no mobile, the results didn't change. So there were no mobile homes. Okay. And then one last thing, guys, we want to make sure that we're also outside of any HOPA area or Housing Older Persons Acts. We don't want to buy an investment property in a 55 and over community, especially if our intentions are to fix and flip. So let's go ahead and also add another additional field called HOPA, and then we are going to answer no HOPA. All right, so now we're looking at 67 matches. So there were 85 matches. We cut it down to 67. So there was quite a few properties in a HOPA community. All right, so now let's go ahead and click on results. And I am going to sort by price. We're going to go ahead and start with the lowest price first. So let's click on LP right here and let's start with the lowest price. The lowest price comes in at $235,000. This is a single family home. It is a three bedroom, one bathroom home with 1,366 square feet. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it and let's take a look at the home. This home is located here in Miami. The address is 4122 Northwest 11th Place. You want to begin by taking a look at some of the pictures. You want to see what you're looking at. All right, so it doesn't seem like it's in bad conditions at all. And you guys want to also check into the property history. So right up here in the MLS, you always have access to property history. You want to see how long they've been trying to sell the property for. So prior to listing it for $235,000 just a few days ago, they tried selling the property back in 2025. In March of 2025, they entered the market at $160,000 and they canceled the listing. All right, but as you can see, during that time, uh, they also had the property for sale at up at $395,000. They lowered the price to 374. It went pending, and then it went canceled. So the property has been, they've been trying to sell the property. I would imagine that this is when the foreclosure was taking place, and the owner was trying to sell the property and it could not, and the listing got canceled and it was foreclosed. All right, so right now the list price is 235 and it's been on the market just a week. All right, they went on the market back on January 21st. Today's the 29th. So it's been on the market for 8 days. Okay. We're going to go ahead and click on listing. And now we know the property history. You guys can come down here and you can take a look at the remarks, see what the agent is telling us. So right now in the broker remarks, let's go ahead and skip right over the remarks itself. Let's go into the broker remarks. So what the agent is telling us is that this property is subject to a 3-day first look initiative. So what does that mean? That means that investors shall not, right, place any type of offers during the first 3 days of the property. Sometimes it's 3 days, sometimes it's 14 days, sometimes it's 21 days. What they're trying to do during these first 3 days is that they're trying to give a buyer an opportunity to buy the home and make it their homestead, make it their home, not an investor, right? After 3 days, then investors are welcome. The seller will negotiate offers after the period expires. Cash offers require 10% earnest money deposit or a $1,000 minimum, whichever is greater. And all finance offers require 1% earnest money. So that means, of course, if you are going to place an offer, you must put at least 1% in earnest money, which is a deposit if you're financing. And if you're buying cash, you must put in at least 10% in earnest money. All right, so always read the broker remarks. The broker usually will tell you, the situation on placing an offer on a property like this. All
Sorry,
right,
Robert, can I ask a question? If
sure.
we put like a down thousand or greater the 10% with the cash buyers and then we couldn't get the agreed and close the deal, can we able to get 100% reimbursement money back, or
Yes,
is
of
there any
course.
fee?
No, yes, of course. So whenever you are representing a buyer in any situation and you're putting a contract together, during your inspection period, even if it's cash, right? even if it's cash. There's no other contingencies after the inspection period. So when you're doing cash, you don't have a loan, you don't have an appraisal. You're pretty much after the inspection period, you are almost clear to close. But during an inspection period, during the first 7 days or 10 days, whatever you put on the contract, your buyer has the right to cancel. Your buyer has the right to cancel and get a full return on the deposit. All right, so very important that when you're putting an offer together, and especially if it's cash, that you get an inspection done quickly and determine whether you're going to push forward with the purchase or you're going to back out. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys. So this property's been 8 days on the market. So my next step, obviously, is to run a quick analysis on the value of the property. So we're going to use IMAP. There are many different tools that you guys can use. You can use Realist, which is this dollar symbol. You can also use RPR, which is this multicolor symbol that you see here. We're actually going to go ahead and tap into IMAP, which is the I symbol right here. We're going to click on IMAP and let's see what IMAP tells us. What is the market value for a home this size right now? So as you see here, the current owner, right? And you'll see here a certificate of transfer. So whenever you see the deed, a certificate of transfer, that means it was a foreclosure, right? If you see special warranty deed or warranty deed, that was a regular sale. If you see quick claim deed, that was a transfer of title from name to name. This is actually a foreclosure, right? And the grantor, which is the person who lost the property, and the grantee is the person that acquired the property, or in this case, the lending institution that acquired the property in foreclosure. The foreclosure took place back in July of 2025 for $280,000. All right. So let's go ahead and click on find comparables over here on the right hand side. And let's see if there's any comps in the area. You guys always want to make sure that you are running your comps based on this criteria. A lot size of 20%, a living area of 20%. You want to start in the same subdivision, and then if you don't find enough comps, then you want to go ahead and switch off to half mile. So in the same subdivision, sold within the last 6 months, you click on update criteria, and we actually found one comparable. So here's our subject property. Here's the one sale that occurred in the last 6 months. That is a property that is similar to our subject property. This property sold for $375,000. It is slightly smaller than the subject property. The subject property is 1,366 square feet, 3-1. Our comparable is a 3-1, slightly smaller at 1,287. So the adjustment on the price is given to you right here. So the subject property has a value based on our one comparable of almost $400,000. Folks, this property is being sold at $235,000. So we're looking at a property that has potential returns on an investment for a quick fix and flip, right? Now I'm going to go back to IMAP and let's just stretch it out to half a mile. See if we can find any more comps. And we did. We found a whole lot of comps here. Okay. And that's going to now increase our potential market value to almost $500,000. All right. So without searching for any more properties, I think I found one that I would like to show you how to determine the potential returns on the investment. We're not always going to get this lucky, right? We're not always going to see that the first property that we find is a good potential, for a great return. You may have to go to the next property and the next property and keep on studying each property until you find the best one. So let's pause right here and let's further study this property. Okay. So from inside of IMAP, you're getting a low of 329, right? You have all these comps. Which of these comps is actually giving you a reading of 329? Well, take a look. The price per square foot, you're going to look at the lowest price per square foot of 240, right? 240. Go look at your comps, find the one that sold for $240 a square foot and remove it. Watch. There it is. I'm going to go ahead and remove it. And now my minimum rises to 362. And my average now climbed to 510. You may ask, why am I doing this? Well, I want to remove the lowest and I want to remove the highest. I want to get a clear picture of what this property could potentially be worth after we renovate the property. All right. Not in its current condition. I don't want to compare it against properties that were sold in their current condition. I want to compare it against properties that were sold at their best, right? At their best. So if I come here and I start removing anything, for example, that sold for less than $300 a square foot, I remove this guy right here. And I'm going to remove this one here. And let's continue removing anything that's sold for less than $300 a square foot. Okay, we're done. We're looking at a high of 764. We're looking at a low of 417, and we're looking at an average of 543. Guys, today, in today's market, the median price for a single family home in Miami-Dade County is upwards of $650,000. So do not be surprised by an average of 543 for a home, even in, in this area. You can find properties. This area is very close to Wynwood, to the Design District, Edgewater. It's an up and coming area, definitely a good investment. All right. So now we're going to click on RPR. You can click on RPR from inside the listing by clicking on this here, or from inside of IMAP, you can also find RPR right over here. So we're going to click on RPR and we're going to now show you how to analyze potential returns on this property. All right. So you want to come down here and you want to select Valuate. It's under the additional resources. We're going to select Valuate and it's going to open up this screen. We're going to click on Continue. All right. So with Valuate, you guys can analyze returns on a quick fix and flip, which is the option right here, flip, which is what we're going to do. Or you can analyze a long-term hold. So for rental income purposes, right? So we're going to go with flip and we're going to come here and we're going to say that we got into a bidding war on the property and we ended up buying the property, let's say for $255,000, all right? Not always going to be the case. Maybe you get it at full price, right? Full price being 235. But let's say we got into a bidding war with other investors. We ended up buying the property for 255. Now we need to determine what would be the full year holding cost. So what is the cost for me to acquire the property and maintain it for an entire year? All right, so begin with taxes. If I go back to IMAP and we go back over here and we click on property tax, you're going to see that last year's taxes on the property were nearly $6,000. So we're going to begin with $6,000. So right here, you got taxes, $6,000, right? Insurance, you may want to insure the property. So let's say that insurance or minimal cost of insurance here is about $3,000. Let's jump that up to $9,000. And then how about running utilities? You want to have running water and running electricity, right? Obviously, you don't need cable, internet, none of that stuff, right? So running water, running electricity. Let's say that we spend $200 a month in electricity and $50 a month in water. So 250. 250 times 12, all right, it's going to be $3,000, right? So let's bring that up now to $12,000. And that is our full year holding costs. If the property were located inside of an HOA, you need to also plug in the HOA fees and, other fees that would be included. So right now we're at $12,000. All right, so now we drop down here. When are we buying this property? Let's say we're going to buy it on March 1st. That's our closing date, March 1st, 2026. And our intentions is to hold the property for 6 months. All right. It is going to prorate, right? So we determined that it's going to be $12,000 a year to maintain the property, but we're going to prorate that amount now only to 6 months. Why? Because we intend to buy it, renovate it, and sell it within 6 months. Correct? All right. So you're going to have two different scenarios. You're going to have a cash purchase scenario and you're going to have a financed scenario. So no investor is going to take out a conventional loan for a fix and flip. Investors are not going to take out FHA loans either for a fix and flip. They're probably going to take out what's called what's named a hard money loan, right? The type of loan that's a hard money loan. So hard money lenders usually loan money for this type of investment at a higher interest rate for a shorter period of time. So let's say that we are going to go in with 80% financing. That's 20% out of pocket from the investor at a higher interest rate. Let's go ahead and put in 10% interest rate, right? And it's going to be one investor. You can go one investor, two investors, three investors. We're going to go with one investor. All right. So, in order to make this deal work, the investor needs to come up with 20% out of pocket to purchase the property, and then the hard money lender will loan them 80% at 10% interest rate for 1 year, right? For 1 year. Let's click on submit. All right, so we haven't entered yet how much we're going to spend to renovate the property. That is actually the next step. Okay. So right now we're gonna come over here to where it says purchase and sale. We're gonna click on purchase and sale. And then for renovation budget, we're gonna enter a renovation budget. Now, in your opinion, guys, how much money should we spend on renovating this house? Doesn't seem like, maybe even the roof is in good conditions. I mean,
Yeah, I was going to
Probably
say the
about
roof. It
5,000
cost
maybe.
5,000 is very cheap. I mean,
very
if,
cheap. Yeah,
especially if you guys want to
change the kitchen.
get,
Yeah,
especially if you guys want to get max dollar and max value for your property, I would put new floors, new kitchen. If the roof
Like
needs to be
75?
repaired, I put a new roof. Obviously, we put
Like
new
70 grand?
impact windows, like impact doors, like you want to make
All
this
right.
house sell closer to 450, right?
What do you think, Rob? Like 70,000?
Yeah, let's go with 70,000. All right. So let's go with 70,000. And let's see how that works. So closing costs, when you are buying the property, especially if you're buying cash, which a hard money lender is considered a cash transaction, you're probably paying about 1% of the 255. All right. If you're financing, you're looking at a closing cost more of 3% of 255. So let's just go ahead and put in here 1% of 255. Let me go ahead and take out my calculator here. Times 0.1. That's about $2,550. Let's go $2,600 in closing costs. All right, guys. So now on the right-hand side, it says gross valuation sales price. You anticipate in selling the property at a much higher, market, right? A much higher value because you fully renovated the property. You put impact windows, impact doors, new floors, new kitchens. You made this house look like a brand new home. So, based on what we gather from RPR says not RPR, but IMAP says the estimated value is 387, but that's just an estimate. We ran our comps. We clicked on find comparables, and we're looking at, upwards of almost $500,000. Let's not even do that. Let's go lower. let's put in our expectations of selling the property at 450. If we sell it for more, then great, right? If we sell it for more, then great. All right, so as it stands, right, we're looking at a 22.9% return if you purchase the property with a hard money lender. If you are buying the property in cash and financing everything yourself, you stand to make almost 26% return on your investment. But wait, there's one last thing. You, the realtor, would also like to represent the seller when reselling the property. So the selling cost, which is the compensation, let's say that the seller offers 5% compensation on the resale of the property. You're going to click on enter. Now you're looking at making almost 18% profit in a 6 month period on this property if you were to sell it at 450, purchasing it at 255 and spending $70,000 to renovate. All right. You look to profit $80,000 in a 6 month period. If you buy cash, you look to profit 93,900. Obviously, guys, the difference there is the interest that you are paying the hard money lender. So the lender, all right, is going to analyze this and they're going to say, yes, this looks like a really good investment opportunity. I will loan you the money and the investor will make $13,000 in a 6 month period, right, from loaning you the money. Okay. So this is, by all accounts, just by looking at this, this is a good investment. Now, mind you, guys, that $70,000 really needs to stretch out. You need to, you know, put new windows, new doors, depending on the conditions of the roof, and definitely renovate the entire home on the inside. Okay. Any questions on what we did?
Yeah, isn't looks like a little suspicious
It
the
does.
property because it isn't selling like a last year. They tried and really high
It
the
does.
money.
It does.
Yeah.
And obviously, guys, you need to do your due diligence, right? You need to do your due diligence, find out why it didn't sell. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, and I don't know this property at all, but I'm gonna tell you this year, they were trying to sell this year before it got foreclosed, right? The homeowners were trying to sell it before it got foreclosed. Then it got foreclosed. Take a look at the office ID. This is a different office. And then right here, right, they were trying to sell it again before it got foreclosed at 160, a different office, probably as a short sale. If I click on the MLS number here, all right, we're gonna take a look up here and we're gonna see that the property was canceled, all right, and it was through auction. Now, 160 wasn't really the price. 160 was probably the minimum price that they were asking for auction, and it did not sell. And then unfortunately, it foreclosed. It foreclosed in July of last year. Okay, and now it's back on the market. All right, so do your due diligence, see why the property hasn't sold. Obviously, guys, you need to go in, you need to investigate, you need to find out if there's any liens and code violations and stuff like that. Let me give you a tip. Easy title search.com. EasyTitleSearch.com is a great website where you guys can purchase a title search for only $60. All right, a title search. If you go to a title company, you ask them to do a title search, they may charge you 150, $200 or whatnot. So you can actually get a one title search, a complete title search with a 24-hour turnaround time for $60. What does a title search do? It's going to tell you if there's any open violations. It's going to tell you if there's any liens on the property. There may be a plumber lien or an electrician lien or a city lien against the property. You never know. So do your due diligence before
Rob, those
investing in a
properties,
property like this.
Robert,
Yes.
those properties with liens, obviously you have like a contractor and stuff like that, the liens better get there.
I cannot hear you.
I said those properties that have liens here.
Do you hear me?
Now I can hear you better. Yes.
Yeah. I said those properties that have liens, if you have a contractor or something, those are even better to get, right? The more problems they have, the less people want to get them.
Yeah, of course. And just keep in mind, guys, liens are not an issue. Liens can
Yeah,
get paid off at closing. So,
exactly.
but the thing is that when a bank owns the property, they're going to basically say the liens are the buyer's responsibility. So you can't force a seller to close out a lien if it's a bank who's selling the property. The bank just wants to get rid of the property, hence why they're selling it at such a low price. They expect the buyer to clean up all the liens. So if there is $50,000 worth of liens, the buyer wants this property, they're going to have to solve that issue. They're going to have to pay off those liens, right? When we write a contract as a realtor representing a buyer, whenever we write a purchase contract, we always include in the contract the seller must take care of all and any open liens or violations against the property before closing. But when we're buying it from a
So
bank,
before closing. Before
yeah,
closing.
before closing, yes. But when we're buying it from a bank, usually banks say, look, this property is being sold as is. Buyer whole, will take care of all of the liens and violations. Okay. You'll see it. You'll see it. Like if I go to the next property, um, let's see here. Room. Let's see if I can find you one. All right, so look at this one. So use showing assist to schedule all showings. Use addendum in the attachment section when sending an offer. Attachment section has copies of all the current violations. See, normally the seller needs to take care of the violations, but that's not the case here. They're making it known the property has violations. And look up here. Property offers excellent redevelopment or renovation potential. Code violations present, ideal for investors, builders, or buyers seeking an opportunity. Buyers are expected to settle any violations or liens against the property. All right, when it's a bank-owned property. Okay. But I mean, look at this, man. This is a property in a very, very desirable area, $350,000. It's a small home. That is a small home, 634 square feet. I don't even think we're gonna find for this property. I don't even think we're gonna find comps. Let's see. Yeah, that's a real small home. 1 year, yeah. We're gonna struggle to find. So let's just go ahead and ignore the living square feet. Square feet. Yeah. What type of lot size do we have? It's a small lot too. Yeah, that's probably a bad idea. All right. Obviously, by ignoring lot square footage and everything, this is just a small lot. That's the wrong property to choose. You go to the next one, and maybe this one offers you a better opportunity, but always read the fine print, always read what they're telling you. All right, so look, before I move to something else, I want you guys to know that what we did here in RPR, you guys can click on File, Export, and then export it to a PDF so you can present it to your client. Present it to your client, let them know that there is an opportunity here to profit. All right. So I'm going to close this report out. I'm going to close RPR out, and then I'm going to go back to Matrix. And I found the property right here that is great. And it's a great lead into my next instruction. For showings, request through showing time. All offers must be submitted through the listing page on auction.com. Why? Because the property is being offered through auction. The sale will be subject to a 5% buyer premium. So basically, the buyer needs to also pay an additional 5% on top of the purchase price. Why? Because essentially, the buyer is paying the compensation to auction.com or to any other realtor that is working the deal. So the buyer is subject to a 5% buyer premium. Okay. This property is being offered in auction.com. Well, guess what? I already have auction.com opened right here. Okay. I was getting ready to show you auction.com. So I'm going to go ahead and click on maybe later. I don't want to sign up yet. But right here, you guys are going to enter the city, or in this case, I'm going to go ahead and enter the address 20520 Northwest. All right, 20520. 20520 Northwest. 21st Avenue, Miami Gardens. There it is. All right, so this auction pretty much already happened, I think. Um, Probably already happened because it says it's pending. So the opening bid on this property was $150,000. The estimated market value on this property was $444,000. Obviously, this property is already pending, so I cannot
But,
really show you how it went.
Robert, I have a question.
Yes.
When properties go to the auctions over here in Miami-Dade, that means that nobody wanted them, the leads from inside the banks and all that stuff. That means it's there, right? It's hard to get listings
It doesn't
that are.
necessarily mean that. It means that this is a method of unloading the property quicker than on the MLS. So
Oh,
basically, if you place the property in auction and you open it to the public for bidding, they can possibly sell the property a lot faster than if
for more
just
money.
selling it conventionally through the MLS. All
Okay,
right.
because I have a couple of developers, but they like sometimes they get leads from inside the banks and stuff before they even go to foreclosure. And when stuff comes out, like I've looked at stuff, and when stuff comes out, it's already like a little fishy, a little like or it goes too high or goes to auction, too many people bid
Yeah.
and stuff.
But let me show you something. Let me show you something. I'm gonna go ahead and open up here IMAP real quick. All right. If you guys don't
Yeah.
mind, this class may go a little further than 1 hour, but there's a lot of material obviously that we're covering. So when you go to IMAP and you go to foreclosure search, and let's just do single family home. So for property type, we're gonna select single family home, and I click on start search. In all of Miami-Dade County right now, there are 4,491 properties that are under the foreclosure process or in the foreclosure process.
Mhm.
Within the last year, I'm going to click on modify search. Within the last year, so let's go to filing date. Today's January 29th, so let's go to January 29, 2025. So greater than or equal to January 29, 2000. So within the last year, 1,048 were filed. 1,048. So within 12-month period, we've had 1,048 new foreclosures pop up in Miami-Dade County. If you guys remember correctly, in the MLS, when I did a foreclosure search in Miami-Dade County, we had 60, well, let's remove the price, right? Let's remove the price. We had a total of 105. So there's 105 REOs for sale right now in Miami-Dade County that are single family home. And there is another 1,048 just this year in process. Okay. Now, if I go to IMAP and I go back to tax search, right? For owner name, let's just open this up and let's just click on bank owned. All right. I think it's bank owned. REO, bank owned. What am I looking for here? There it is. REO bank owned, right? Let's click on yes. Single family homes. I didn't choose darn it. Let's go back, modify criteria. Let's go single family home, bank owned, start search. And in Miami-Dade County right now, there's 154 REOs. So there's 105 REOs for sale on the MLS, and there's currently 154 single family homes that are bank owned. Okay. So that means that there's about 50 homes that are currently belong to a bank, but they're not for sale. So maybe those are the homes where, banks give tips to investors. Hey, look, I've got an off-market deal here for you, right? Or maybe they go the route of going through auction websites like auction.com, right? To sell the property. But right now on the market, in the MLS is only 105, and there's 154 total bank-owned properties in Miami-Dade County. So look at the numbers, guys. There's 4,000 properties that are dealing with a foreclosure lien on them right now. Okay. So there's a lot of opportunities, even for us realtors, to try and get our buyers an off-market deal. If you know of a property in your community that is in pre-foreclosure, it is a good idea to try and reach out to the owner and say, hey, look, I have an investor willing to pay you X amount of dollars. This will get you out of your issues. Are you willing to sell your property? A lot of these homeowners with foreclosure liens fell behind on their payments, and they're trying to find a way to rescue their home and not lose their home. So it's not always going to be the case, but as realtors, we should be fishing through these properties, these 4,000 properties, and see which ones we can get off market. All right. So look, in auction.com, I'm just going to go with Miami because that property we looked at obviously already is pending. So let's go with Miami. You have here listing type. Let's go with REO. Let's click on done. And let's do filter single family home, see homes. All right. Why does it say it's hot? Let's see why it's hot. This property here starts in 5 days. All right. So the estimated market value on this property is 515,000 and the opening bid is 175,000. I want you guys to know how this works. These auctions, once you register to bid, these auctions go in uh online, right? So you don't have to go physically to a place to place bidding. You're gonna go online. The the person that registers needs to register with 3% down payment. They need to put up 3% in order to participate in an auction like this. Okay. There is no buyer's premium. It is a cash only auction. And you can see other, similar. So you're going to participate in a bidding war. And if the reserve is met, a reserve is when the bank or when the bidding reaches the bank's minimum price to sell the home. So let's say their reserve is $350,000. When the bidding reaches $350,000 and the reserve is met, most likely this property will sell to that investor, right? To the highest bidder. If the reserve is not met, then the bank reserves the right to not sell the property. So let's say it fell short of 350. The bank could say, you know what, we'll try again in a month. All right, in a week. So it's very important for the investor to know to at least try and reach the reserve, what the bank considers a fair, a fair price to sell the home. All right, guys, learn more about auction.com. Go ahead and register. Just you can find out more about auction.com, and then also there are other websites. There's websites like Hubzu, which is this here, HUBZU.com. Right? This is another one. There's XOME.com. That's another one. These are all auction websites. Okay. Now, the county has an auction website too, and that is the Clerk of Court Official Foreclosure and Tax Deed Sales. You can always switch to any county in Florida through here, right? So if I go to Broward, it'll take me to the Broward Clerk of Court. Watch. Now we're in the Broward Clerk of Court. If I come back over here and I want to go back to Miami-Dade, we go back to Miami-Dade by clicking there and it takes us to the Miami-Dade Clerk of Court. All right. I'm just going to open the calendar and show you. Okay. Here are the auction. Obviously, let's go to the next week here. All right. So here are the auctions scheduled for this coming week. On Monday, there are 44 properties up for auction. And these auctions begin at 9 a.m. and usually last just a few minutes. Okay. These are foreclosure auctions prior to the bank repossessing the property. So the bank before they actually take title away from the home, they're going to put it up in a foreclosure auction in the clerk of court in Miami-Dade County, open it up to the public. And if someone, all right, if an investor has the highest bid and qualifies to purchase the property, they're going to sell it to them. All right. Now, these auctions work a little differently. These auctions work in $1,000 increments. What I mean by this, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to go ahead and click on start here real quick and show you. What I mean by this is that these are online, right? And they're done in $1,000 increments. All right. Prior to the time of sale, the successful highest bidder must post with the clerk of court a non-refundable deposit of 5%. Okay. Final payment must be done in wire transfer or in person in a cashier's check. Okay. And then the bidding is all done in $1,000 increments. Um, Obviously, if you lose out because someone beat you, then you get your 5% back. All right. You're not gonna lose out on that 5%. All right. This is only if you win the auction that 5% is not returned to you because obviously you have to come up with the rest amount of the money. Okay. Uh, a certificate of title may be issued by the clerk of court after 10 days, from the purchase. All right. What equipment you need, how do you present the day of the sale? You present yourself at the website and you go for auction. Obviously, guys, this is all mostly sight unseen. So when you're looking at a property like this in the auction calendar, you don't know what the property looks like. So you may want to give yourself some ample time and not look at Mondays. Maybe look at auction schedule for a month from now and do your due diligence on a property because you want to see what you're bidding. You want to try and find out as much information as possible. All right, so that's another way that you
Hi
guys
Becky, how are you?
How are you? What I'm facing, they're okay with being evicted.
All right, sorry about that. I had to mute there. What was I saying? Yeah, so you want to give yourself ample time to kind of prepare. I want to show you something, guys. I'm gonna go back to January, and let's go back to January 12th, for example. January 12th. This is to show you what actually happens with these properties. Look, this auction was canceled. You're gonna see a lot of cancellations. See, cancel, cancel, canceled. This auction right here, all right, this property was won and sold to the plaintiff. Who's the plaintiff? Right? The original lender. They foreclosed on the home for 495. All right. And notice 495, 100. I told you guys in $1,000 increments and I was wrong. It's $100 increments. I'm so sorry. It's $100 increments. So let's take a look here. This one was sold to the plaintiff for $830,100. Let's go to the next one. I want to find here, look at this one. This one was sold at 9:34, so it took 34 minutes. But ultimately, this sold to a third party bidder for $990,100. You may ask yourself, man, that's an expensive, right? That's an expensive property to buy an auction. Well, let's take a look at the property, 3201 Southwest 129th Avenue. All right, I'm gonna go to IMAP just real quick here. I'm gonna go to IMAP, gonna go ahead and click on new search, and then the property address is that right there. Let's click on search. So just the estimated value, that's not even the CMA value, just the estimated value is upwards of $1,600,000. The third party bidder paid $990,100. So would you say that's a good deal? Yes, right? I mean, I think it's a good deal, especially after I come over here and I click on find comparables and I do this 20%, half mile, 6 months, and we're looking at $3,700,000, $1,800,000. You got an average of 2.7, almost 2.8, and they bought it for 990. I would say this is a good deal. All right. So great job for the investor who bought it for 990. Here's the plaintiff buying this one for $200,000. Here's the plaintiff buying it for 340. So whenever you see a plaintiff, that means the bank that owns the loan basically kept the property themselves. All right, they outbid anybody else. All right, so go to miamidade.realforeclose.com to find the clerk of court auctions. All right. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and switch focus real quick here and let's talk about the rental income properties. All right, let's go to the MLS and let's go ahead and run a multifamily income search. Multifamily income search. Now, of course, you may get investors that say, "Hey, Robert, show me investment properties that I could buy, condos on the water somewhere in downtown Brickell, South Beach areas." Realize this, that the condo fees, which are sometimes very high, will cut into your profit. And sometimes it just doesn't make sense to buy a property that has a very high condo fee because you're not going to be able to justify those fees and get enough profit. So, if I were an investor looking to build my portfolio, I'd probably be looking at multifamily homes. Yeah, you can buy a single family home and rent it, but you have one income. What if we go after a duplex? What if we go after a duplex in zip code 33145? All right, let's see here. This is a zip code very close to the Brickell area, Coconut Grove. It's I think it's called Shenandoah area. We're gonna click on results and let's take a look. Uh, I'm gonna go ahead and sort by price, and we have here. Let's take a look at this one, $725,000. And you've got two incomes here of 2,100 each. Do you think $4,200 a month is going to cut it? You're looking at a purchase price of 725. I like to do the math real quick like this. All right. $4,200 times 12 is $50,400. Divide that by $725,000 and you're looking at 0.69%. So 7% of gross returns. This is before adding all expenses. So do you think that is a good deal? If you buy it at 725 and you're getting 4,200 a month, I think we can do better. So before you even tap into RPR or anything like that, just do the math. Come here. This one is available for 750 and now just for $25,000 more. Now we have more income. Now we have more income. So if I come over here now and I use my calculator, 2,200 plus 2,200 plus 1,500, now we're looking at $5,900 a month times 12. That is $70,800. That's almost 10% of the
8%.
purchase price. That's almost 10% of the purchase price. This is a good deal. If we can verify these incomes and they're telling you least, 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 right? So if we can verify this income to be true, then even after we add expenses, I mean, if you divide 70,800, which is our yearly income, right? Divided by $750,000 purchase price, you're looking at 9.5% returns on the gross. Okay. So without looking any further into this, I'm going to go right into RPR right here. RPR. Okay. And then we're going to scroll down and we're going to go ahead and hit the evaluate tool once again. Let's click on evaluate. Let's click on continue. All right. So this is a 3 unit with a potential gross rent annually of $70,800. So $70,800 is the calculation, right? Operating expenses begin with taxes. So last year's taxes, well, it says 2024. So let's check with 2025. Let's open up IMAP real quick here. All right, so IMAP says last year's taxes was almost $9,000, right? So let's begin with not 9,000, 8,000. Sorry. Yeah, 7,800. So $8,000. Okay, insurance on a property like this is probably going to run somewhere around $6,000 or right around there. Okay, so let's go ahead and say $6,000 more. Now we're at
Robert,
$14,000.
any like the idea or like a trick for the insurance? How do you calculating for your pudding?
Right now, I'm just estimating to give you a class. Obviously,
Okay.
guys, we have to call the listing agent and we have to verify the numbers. You have to
Okay.
call Francisco and say, "Hey, Francisco, I'm interested. I got a buyer interested. Can you share what the income and expense report is?" Sometimes they will include the income and expense report in the attachments. You'll see an attachment up here, and you guys can click on it and you can go by that. But the listing agent here didn't tell us anything. Take a look. No expenses or anything. So right now I'm just guessing. I know how much I pay in my home insurance, so I'm just giving you a ballpark figure. I don't have a duplex, but you know, I'm going based on just guessing, right? Just to give you a class. $14,000 we're right now at expenses. All right. What are their expenses? Obviously, are there separate meters in this place, right? Do they have separate meters? So you're gonna see here rent includes nothing, right? Separate meters, yes. So they take care of their own electrical. Rent includes nothing. So the rent is not gonna pay anything. I would venture to guess that the landlord is paying some type of maintenance on the property unless there's no grass. If there's no grass, no landscaping, nothing to really maintain, then there's really nothing to maintain. Again, guys, I just chose a property to give you a class. This may not be the best property, but I wanted to show you. Okay. So let's also put away another $6,000 for reserves. See right here, expenses and reserves. Let's put away another $6,000 for reserves. So bringing our total expenses to $20,000 a year. Why do you want to save for reserves? Obviously, when that refrigerator breaks or when the plumbing is leaking, that comes from your reserves and not from your pocket. It comes from reserves. Okay. Purchase the property March 1st. Let's hold it for 10 years. Let's invest 20%. Let's invest 25%. So let's finance 75% at a 6.5% interest rate. All right. So my it's going to be a conventional loan, 25% down, financing 75% at a 6.5% interest rate. Let's click on submit. Guys, obviously, this is all based on verifiable numbers. All right. This for 750 to get this much income, obviously, you're looking at a 20% internal rate of return with a 16% cash on cash return on a levered analysis. That means your financed analysis. All right. If those numbers are verifiable and you truly are making $5,900 a month and the property really is for sale at 750, then this is a gold mine. Because if you buy cash, you're making 9% return on your investment if you buy cash. If you finance, of course you're going to make more. It's less risks. What are you financing? You're financing 75%. What is this 19% base is based on the 25% that you gave down. What is 25% of $750,000? All right. 25% of $750,000 is 187,500. So your out of pocket is 187,500 and in 10 years you would have generated 374,326. So you would have doubled your investment. You would have doubled your investment if all these numbers are true. All right? This is a great tool. It's going to help you put together the numbers for your clients. You can always go to sources of funds up here and say, what if the interest rate is higher? All right, well, 7%. Let's go with 7%. You're still looking at a very healthy 19%, return. It didn't really do much. And you're looking at a cap rate of 7%. So what is the realtor telling us here? The realtor is telling us exceptional opportunity in the heart of Miami, spacious duplex, income generating, and ideally situated, rapidly growing area. Easy to show. Okay, so they're not really telling us anything. Sometimes you're gonna come across a property that tells you, hey, this is 6.5% cap rate, this is 7% cap rate, and they tell you what the expenses are. All right, so this one's no expenses. Let's take a look at. Well, there's an attachment. Great. All right. Improvements. Yeah, that's not the attachment I was looking for. Let's go to the next one, see if we can find what I'm looking for. And gross rent includes, so the income is 61,200, 2,500 and 2,600, and this one's, for 899. So this one is probably more like what you can come to expect. That first one that I did was too good to be true. So if you're looking at 61,200 in gross income, 61,200, and divide that by the purchase price of $899,000, you're looking at 0.68% gross. After you calculate your expenses, you're probably right around 5% net. Still a very good investment, but of course, your investors may want to look for more, right? They want to may look for more. So, what will generate more? A fourplex, right? A fourplex. And let's see fourplexes in Miami-Dade County under 1.5 million. Under 1.5 million. There's 75 of them. There's a lot of fourplexes in Miami-Dade County. And take a look. Let's go somewhere like this, Southwest 10th Avenue. All right. Here is a fourplex. Man, oh man. All right. Well, it kind of looks decent on the inside, right? And come down here and look at that, guys. 3,100, 2,500, 2,050, 1,050. All right. Even if you're paying $1 million for the property, right? What are you paying here? $1 million. Even if you pay $1 million, this is a property that generates a ton of income. All right. Currently generating $8,700 a month in rental. So there are plenty opportunities for you to present to your investor. All right. Just use the tools that we just showed you. Use RPR, use IMAP, use, the MLS. Use your own calculator. I mean, if this is generating $8,700 a month in rent, right? $8,700 a month in rent times 12, that's $104,400 a year. Divide that by your purchase price of $1,025,000, you're looking at 10% returns on the gross, on gross. Go ahead and add the expenses. Yeah, so what? So maybe you have to pay electricity, right? Look, rent includes water. I'm just going to do this one just to kind of close out the class. Let's click on our PR again. All right, and let's come over here. Let's click on evaluate. Let's click on continue. All right, I'm glad this happened. I want you guys to see. You do not need to pay for an upgrade. All you need to do is click on the orange link that says click here, and you're gonna clean out your storage. See, you have very limited storage in the evaluate tool. It only saves 5 properties. So these are the 5 properties. I'm going to choose the first one, which is the one I'm using right now, and I'm gonna click on submit, and we bypass the upgrade, right? You don't have to pay for this. All right, so we are generating, right, $104,400 in income per year. Okay. So what expenses can we expect? Well, let's click on IMAP. Let's see how much taxes are. All right. Taxes were $13,000 last year. So let's go ahead and plug in here 13,000. Um, let's say insurance on something like this was $8,000, right? So 13,000 and 8,000, we're at $21,000. They say that water is included with the rent. So let's say this is a fourplex and we go $50 per unit. So $200 a month. All right, let's go with $200 a month times 12. We're looking at $2,400. So let's bring our expenses up to 23,400. We may need a maintenance guy to come over here and provide some maintenance on the property, maybe, right? Let's just say that we pay a maintenance guy 1,000 a month to maintain the property. All right. So let's bring our expenses up to $24,500. All right. And pest control. Let's say that every 3 months you get pest control to go out there, and let's say it costs you $300 every 3 months, so another $1,200. So let's bring our expenses up to $26,000, and let's save another $9,000 in reserves. So let's bring our total expenses for the year plus reserves at $35,000. Okay. Buy this on March 1st, 10 years, 75% financing, 6.5% interest rate. What are we looking at? What are the numbers? You're looking at a mistake. Whenever you see that, that's a mistake. All right, $9 million, that's a mistake. So when you find a mistake, just do it again. Come here, file, new file, and let's do this again. Multifamily. Let's just call this one, and let's call this one again, right? Square footage on the property is 2752. 2752. Purchase price was is a million, what was it? 1,025,000. 1,025,000. And number of units for potential rent was 87,000 something. Let's just go with $87,000. No, potential rent was $104,000. $104,000, $104,400. Okay. And then operating expenses, we said it was 35,000. That's plus reserves, right? 3% annual income growth. Don't ever change that. Leave it at 3%. It's your standard inflation and whatnot. So March 1st, and we're looking at financing 75%. Unfortunately, I had to enter the numbers again because the first time around it produced a mistake, an error. All right, so let's click on submit and let's see if we can fix this. All right, purchase and sale, and yes, we now have the correct numbers. Guys, you're generating 20% returns. All right, you're generating 20% returns. This is a great investment. This is a really good investment. This is why on the MLS, they're saying that this is an amazing, an amazing, great monthly income. All right. So again, we found you another amazing property that you can obtain through the MLS for your investors. This is generating a ton of income. Whenever this number over here is positive, that means that the investor does not have to put out of their own pocket each month to make money. If this is a positive number, let's say this number is 5%, but this number is -1 or negative zero point 0.5, then your investor needs to put out of their own pocket in order to make ends meet. All right. But whenever you have a positive number over here, you are golden. All right. Guys, any questions on what we went through today? Just as a reminder, that was a fourplex in the MLS. If you want to search for larger properties, you go to commercial, improved right here. And anything over 5 units, you're going to come here, hit sale, and you're going to hit apartments, and you're going to hit Miami-Dade. These are larger properties. These are much larger properties, right? These are not 4 units. These are 6 units, 10 units, 25 units, whatever units. So something like this, right?
Rob, I have a question. Anything over 4 units though is considered like after 4 units is
Anything over
considered
four.
commercial.
So, right, anything
Yeah.
over four. So five or more is considered commercial. This one
Yeah.
is 12 units. So obviously your due diligence is more and your expenses are going to be more and whatnot, but you may you may end up making more money off of something like this. I mean, look, guys, this is a listing and absolutely no information is volunteered at all. Why do realtors do this? They want you to make a phone call. Like if you got a client right now looking for this property and you want to go see this property, wouldn't you want to know how much the expenses are and how much the income is? So you're gonna have to make that phone call because that's what the realtor wants. I mean, look, they basically volunteer no information. All right. They volunteer no information. So call ahead of time, do your due diligence. All right. Guys, as a reminder, I did record this class. It is going to be available within the hour inside of my YouTube channel. I'm going to load it up. It's going to be called Working with Investors. So if you want to rewatch today's class, it's going to be available inside the YouTube channel. And then for those of you that are coming to the office tomorrow, we have a great live presentation where we're going to talk about how to work with sellers, which I will be teaching you. And then we do have a presentation by a development here in Coral Gables named called 17. They're gonna bring snacks, and it should be a great opportunity for you to learn from a new developer here in Coral Gables. So I look forward to seeing you here tomorrow. Thank you so much for attending today's course, and have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Bye now.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Robert, thank you. Great.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye now.
Bye.